Hello, everybody. This is Nate Strong from Nightingale Writing Center, here to talk about active voice and passive voice. Oh, this is something that I know lots of instructors like to go over, so I definitely want to give you the skinny on this. Oh, give you the details on this, right? That's your slang for the day, too. Okay, so in English, the usual order for the parts of a sentence is subject, verb, sometimes object. This varies with questions and such like that, but we're dealing with basic sentences here. Subject, verb, sometimes object. Let's look at some sentences that fit this very basic pattern. Lola runs, I love chocolate, they have it. So in these previous sentences, the subject performs the action of the verb. Bear that in mind. If we have subject, verb, object, the subject is performing the action of the verb. And that is active voice. So in Lola runs, the subject Lola performs the action of running. And the subject here, I love chocolate, I performs the action of loving. I do very much love chocolate, by the way. Now, something to bear in mind, though, is that the idea of action can be more abstract. They have it. They have the watch, I guess. Having feels very awkward in terms of thinking of as being a very strong action, but it is classified as an action verb. And we talk more about that in the video on action verbs and linking verbs. So passive voice flips this all around. In passive voice, the subject receives the action of the verb. Let's back up a little bit here, actually. When we look at this sentence, I love chocolate, chocolate is receiving the action of the verb love. Right? Chocolate is the object of the sentence. And here, more strangely, it receives the action of having. It is in the object part of the sentence. But we're about to twist everything around. My computer was hacked. What is performing the action of hacking? It never says in the sentence itself. We can take guesses, but it is not there in the text at all. What receives the action of the verb? My computer. But my computer is the subject of the sentence. The subject is receiving the action rather than performing the action. That's what makes it passive voice. So the actor of the verb may or may not be present in the sentence. When we looked at my computer was hacked, it doesn't say who did the hacking. Here is a sentence, though, where it's all made clear. The dog was walked by the woman. That will sound awkward to a lot of people. Maybe not everybody, but a lot, because we don't normally phrase it this way. Put a pin in that. We'll come back to this idea in a bit. So I think you can see passive voice is often wordy and hard to follow. And that's why for a lot of us, it kind of sounds like fingernails on the chalkboard. It's harder to parse out. You have to listen more. It's just harder. It's harder to write, harder to read, harder to listen to, harder to understand. Fortunately, we can correct this in the revision process. And revisions, well, more editing process if we want to make that distinction. Okay. So let's take a minute here and look at the very awkward sentence and see how you would correct this to active voice. The dog was walked by the woman. I'm going to guess that you have said the woman walked the dog. Let's see. Exactly. The woman walked the dog, right? Much more straightforward, much shorter, much clearer, much easier to understand. Now, this does not mean that you have to revise every single sentence in the world to active voice. There is a time and place for passive voice, but you want to be intentional and selective about it. In fact, passive voice probably shows up more in academic writing in an acceptable way than it does most other places, and we'll see why here. So the sentence we have here, very typical of something that we might find in the sort of academic writing that you are doing right now. The research was conducted over 3 years. Okay. What is our verb? Was conducted. That's our verb. What is performing the action of was conducted? I don't know, it's not in the sentence. What receives the action of was conducted? The research. Clear sign of passive voice. But is it okay? I would say that it is in this context. Why? Well, let's do the sort of revision that we were doing with the woman and the dog. And this time, because we have a missing performer of the action, we're just going to plug it in. Who's doing the research? The researchers. So let's see how the sentence comes out. The researchers conducted the research over 3 years. Oh my gosh, that sounds very painful to my ears as well, even though it's an active voice. Oh, why? Well, it's very wordy, and academic / APA writing favors brevity. Right? It feels a little redundant with researchers research. And finally, you're generally not concerned about the researchers when you're writing a sentence like this. You're generally just thinking about the research. The object of the object of the recipient of the action is what we care about, right? So, in fact, this is the stronger sentence for our context. The research was conducted over 3 years. Now, that means we're looking at general principles and rules of thumb rather than hard and fast rules, right? I already said that it's not a matter of never using passive voice. And it's not even strictly that passive voice can sometimes be okay in academic writing, but nowhere else. Like, there are other places it can show up too. But again, this is about knowing what you intend and how your intent comes across in your writing. And as I say, the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more you can build and the more you can play with your sentences. All right, that is everything that I have for now. Again, this is part of a series on verbs that I hope you will check out. I, for now, will say thank you very much, flame forward, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye, everybody.